Sharon Van Etten, Tramp.
Stuffy nose. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for an album review, Sharon Van Etten, Tramp. Sharon Van Etten is a Brooklyn singer-songwriter who I've been listening to ever since she made her little first handmade demos. Although I haven't totally been head over heels with everything that she's done in the past. From the sort of rough around the edges Because I Was in Love, which is an album kind of based on those initial demos, to the criminally short album Epic. Every time I listen to one of her releases, I always think, yeah, this is good, but there's just this kind of potential that's not being fully realized, I guess. But there are things that are already inherently great about Sharon that kind of keep me coming back to her releases again and again and like Sharon's songwriting, which always has some pretty great lyrics, and her voice, which is always just so raw and emotive. She's got a really mature and womanly voice. In no sense is it light or girly or flimsy, and that helps a lot when Sharon is trying to transmit the emotions behind these post-breakup songs. Or at least they feel like post-breakup songs. To me, this album kind of feels like the act of unpacking emotional baggage left over after you've broken up with somebody, and you're just kind of unpacking box after box after box, sifting through things, seeing what's worth salvaging, what needs to be thrown away ASAP, and what you just can't let go of no matter how much you want to. You kind of get these really vague memories all throughout this album of turning points in relationships with this person or people, like on the song Give Out, where Sharon is singing to a particular person and saying that you're the reason I'll move to the city, you're the reason I'll leave. Or on the song Serpents, where Sharon is singing about kind of this inevitable change that's coming. And it's a change that's going to bring things closer to the end, and I guess she's trying to come to terms with that. And the track All I Can seems to be singing about just personal flaws and mistakes, and accepting that as well. It's in a way that's sort of assuring for the listener too, because I feel like she's just singing directly at me, and she's just trying to do everything in her power to get me to understand this. There's a lot of emotional strength on this LP, but there are spots of weakness too on here, like on the track I'm Wrong. It seems like Sharon's trying to grab validation from this broken relationship by singing to this person, asking if she was worth all the miles he put on his car, I guess to keep the relationship going. The relationship is over, but it was still good, right? It wasn't just a waste of time, right? There's just a range of feelings and stories focusing on this dying love. And even though that's not a novel concept in music and songwriting, Sharon is just so passionate and so good a singer that I just want to hear her side of the story. And that passion, again, for me, comes through the great singing and some really good vocal melodies too. On the song Leonard, she has this vocal melody that's constantly ascending and descending in this really catchy way. She's also got a load of very close vocal harmonies on this LP too that have kind of a first aid kit quality to them, especially on the track Serpents, which is sung really loudly and intensely. And there are moments on here where she's singing and her voice just seems very spotlighted, very alone, and kind of sweet and understated, like on the track Joke or a Lie. If it wasn't already apparent, just Sharon's voice, her melodies, her lyrics, and the chords that she uses to build her songs, to me are the most interesting thing Tramp has going for it. So for me, the songs that feel the best on this album are the tracks that are either the simplest or just kind of have the least bells and whistles and showcase those strengths. Like the track Give Out, which is pretty much just acoustic guitar and voice, but it's backed up by some really light electric guitar leads that feel pretty atmospheric and dramatic, and these heavy but sparse drums, just really spacious, leaving tons of room for the emotion of the track. The instrumentation does get harder and louder on this LP too, though, like on the track Serpents, which has this very driving drum beat. The guitars get heavier too, but it's not a busy song. The music's volume is just rising to match the intensity of Sharon's songwriting on that track. It's on the song Leonard that I think the instrumentation becomes a little too much, I guess. I do love that track. It's one of my favorites on the album. And the instrumentation does kind of feel lush and plentiful between what sounds kind of like an accordion or a pump organ, a piano, but the performance just kind of feels really predictable. It feels like the instrumentation is supposed to be there, a lot like you're supposed to do your homework. And as a result, they just kind of play what it sounds like they're supposed to play. The song kind of skips along like it was a Beirut tune or something. And speaking of Beirut, Zach Condon of Beirut is actually on the 8th track here, We Are Fine, singing. But honestly, that song does kind of add up to my least favorite on here. I just feel like Zach's erratic vibrato works much better alone. I just don't really dig it all that much mixed with a Sharon Van Etten song and her voice too. But there are actually quite a few other notable indie musicians featured on this LP. Juliana Barwick is on here, Jen Wassner from the band Y Oak, as well as Matt Barrick from The Walkmen, and Aaron Dessner from The National is on here as well. He actually owns the studio that this album was recorded in. The personality and the songs and the stories are there, you know? I just feel like some of these songs have quirks about them that just kind of turn me off. Like the opening track, which is kind of loud but just so short and does not leave the impact on me, the gripping impact that I feel like a first track should. And on the track In Line, the vocal melody kind of wanders in a way that doesn't really deliver a melody to me that kind of sticks with me, you know? I prefer the tracks on here where the vocals just feel more precise. I do think the last several tracks on this LP are pretty awesome, though. The track Ask follows that simpler and more confessional style of songwriting that other tracks succeed with on this album. Plus, I love how intense and loud that track gets as it kind of progresses. Starts off very soft, but the instrumentation subtly introduces itself as it moves along, just getting more and more. And the last two tracks, Joker a Lie and I'm Wrong, feature Sharon singing over this kind of drony instrumentation. It's a trick she's done before, but she's brought it up to another level on this LP. The track I'm Wrong feels really kind of huge, kind of epic, with some booming drums towards its end, some guitar hums kind of rising in the background that have a little bit of bite to them. That track for me is kind of like watching an explosion in slow motion. This time around, I feel like Sharon is doing way more instrumentally and production-wise than she did with Epic. More instruments, more musical guests. Sometimes I feel like they complement her songs, sometimes I feel like they don't, other times I could just kind of take it or leave it. I just kind of end up with a group of tracks on here that kind of pale in comparison to others by a large degree. But whatever, because like this album acknowledges, change, it's inevitable. It's gonna happen. It's gotta happen. Just roll with the punches. I did end up liking this album a lot, though. Feeling kind of a decent to strong 7 on this thing. What do you guys think about it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Why? And what should I review next? Anthony Fantano, Sharon Van Etten, forever.